Today, we're talking about how ignoring relationship red flags leaves us walking on eggshells. There's a fine line between giving someone the benefit of the doubt and actively making excuses for behavior that frightens you. I was looking over some deleted scenes from my debut novel recently, and I found a sequence that illustrates this exact psychological tightrope so clearly that I knew I had to share it. In this scene, Emma is out at the mall with her friend Becca doing normal weekend things, totally convinced that her new boyfriend Scott is just a sweet, misunderstood guy. But watch how hard she works to defend him at lunch and how fast that illusion shatters the second she walks through her front door. Scott's been incredibly sweet lately, I shared enthusiastically. The other day, he even tackled the laundry so I could focus on my research paper. That's a good sign, Becca noted with a warm smile as she picked the onions off her sandwich. It's important that he's willing to help out. She then turned her gaze toward me with a curious expression. Has he opened up to you more since you moved in? I remember you mentioning he was a bit closed off initially. He has, I replied. He had a tumultuous breakup right before we got together. His ex-girlfriend seems like she was quite the character. Becca's interest was piqued. Tell me more. It's a wild story, I began. She had a penchant for drinking and sometimes pulled some pretty outrageous stunts just to get his attention. One time, she plotted this elaborate scheme to make it appear as though he had kidnapped her, which led to him getting arrested for domestic violence. I feel so terrible that he had to deal with all that. Thankfully, he quickly realized she was not playing with a full deck. Wait a minute, Becca interjected, her voice laced with concern. He was arrested for domestic violence? She posed it as a question. Yeah, I confirmed. Technically, he didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I heard the whole story. She genuinely seemed like she had some issues. We studied women like her in my personality disorders class. I'm pretty sure she had borderline personality disorder. Becca fell into silence for a moment before speaking again. Emma, I'm not sure what to say. Don't you think the fact that he's been arrested raises a red flag? I mean, wouldn't the police have investigated before making an arrest? You know how these things can go, Becca. I responded as I moved some fries around my plate with my fork. The guy usually gets blamed regardless of what happened. Becca's next words echoed my mother's cautionary tone. Emma, please promise me you'll be cautious. You haven't really known Scott for very long. I chuckled at the familiar protective concern in Becca's voice. Deep down, her reaction stung a little. I should have expected her to react this way. She'd always been exceptionally protective of me, sometimes to a fault. I know it sounds crazy, I admitted, but you can't underestimate how convincing these borderline individuals can be. They'll go to great lengths for attention. Remember Fatal Attraction? She was the classic borderline. I paused, my thoughts darkening for a moment. I just hoped my story didn't follow that same path. Upon returning to the apartment later that day, I immediately sensed something was amiss as the absence of the guy's cars in the driveway caught my eye. I entered the house and dropped my bags on the kitchen island. I was immediately drawn to the unmistakable sound of blaring music from the upstairs TV room. Climbing the stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease as the scene unfolded before me, resembling more of a college frat house than the sanctuary of our home. Upon reaching the TV room, the scene before me was far from welcoming. The coffee table was a chaotic landscape littered with approximately 30 empty beer bottles, while empty pizza boxes lay scattered on the floor. A TV tray lay flipped on its side, and the doors blasted from the TV speakers. Amid this disarray, Scott sat on the couch, his demeanor resembling a ticking time bomb. What happened? Is everything okay? I inquired cautiously. They lost. It's over. All that training for nothing, he erupted in frustration. You mean the Patriots lost the game? I asked, seeking clarity. Yes, they fucking lost. It's over. OVER, he emphasized vehemently, his anger palpable. An empty beer bottle became an unintended projectile as he hurled it across the room, where it collided with the wall. Scott, calm down. It's just a game, I whispered, trying to quell his rising ire. What? He shouted, his voice seething. It's not just a game, he said, articulating each word with disdain. These were the fucking playoffs. Now we aren't going to go to the Super Bowl. A sense of fear washed over me as I grappled with his escalating anger. My words seemed inadequate to soothe his frustrations. So they'll try again next year, I offered, hoping for some consolation. Next year? Are you all right? Do you even realize what we've put into it this year? He spoke with a passion that made it seem like he was one of the players himself. You have no idea what the hell you're even talking about. Don't be an idiot. Taken back by his rudeness, I recoiled. He had never treated me this way before. While the influence of alcohol was apparent, such behavior was inexcusable. Look, I'm sorry they lost, I began, but that doesn't give you the right to treat me like shit. With an explosive exit, he stormed downstairs, and I heard the resounding slam of the front door. Moments later, the sound of tires squealing marked his hurried departure. I set to work cleaning up the chaotic aftermath of his outburst and took a soothing shower to wash away the tension that had filled the room. As I stood under the cascading water, my earlier excitement about showing Scott the new flatware I'd bought with Becca at the mall seemed trivial. At that moment, flatware wasn't a priority anymore. This scene still makes me pause. The transition from the ordinary bright afternoon at the mall to a living room full of flying glass and insults is absolute emotional whiplash. But what really strikes me about this early draft is how painfully honest it is about the mental gymnastics that we do when we want a relationship to work. Emma's a smart woman, but at lunch she's working hard to excuse a literal domestic violence arrest. Because Scott did a load of laundry and because he was sweet, she minimizes a massive red flag. She even uses her own college psychology class to diagnose the ex, completely turning Scott into the victim so she doesn't have to face the scary reality of who she just moved in with. We do this because facing the truth means the dream is over, and letting go of a future we've just started building is terrifying. So instead, we look at bad behavior and find a justification for it. We blame the alcohol, we blame the stress of a playoff game, or we blame ourselves for not saying the right thing to calm them down. Look at how quickly Emma's behavior shifts the moment she gets home. She goes from chatting happily over fries to whispering, inquiring cautiously, and shrinking herself to fit around his rage. That is the exact moment we trade our peace for a relationship. We tell ourselves it's just a one-time thing, but deep down, we already know the truth. In the final version of the novel, Emma's journey through these complicated relationship dynamics gets even deeper, and she has to find her way back to her own voice. If you love stories that dive into the real life truths of contemporary relationships, you can grab a copy of the book below. And before we go, I want to leave you with this week's permission slip. Permission to trust the warning signs the very first time you see them. You can find a digital copy of that ticket and all the links in the show notes. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and share it with a woman in your life who is finding her own voice. For more deep dives and to join our community, head over to my Substack, The Authentic Voice. I'm Melissa Ann Palmer, and remember, your voice is the most authentic thing you own. I'll see you next time.